Phase 4 of Marvel is officially over, and that means it's time to dive in and rank all 17 projects from this phase. Yes, this now does include Wakanda Forever, as well as Guardians of the Galaxy, the Holiday Special. I could not figure out if Holiday Special was supposed to be a part of Phase 5 or Phase 4. They kept saying Ant-Man was the one that was going to kick off Phase 5, and they kept saying that Wakanda Forever is the one ending Phase 4. So I'm throwing it in here. Phase 4 is over. It's time to dive in and rank all of these from worst to best. Make sure to leave your thoughts down below, and without further ado, let's dive right into this. And coming down at my number 17 in last place is She-Hulk Attorney at Law. Now, I actually didn't hate this one, but it also could have been way better. I think just to get my pros out of the way, Tatiana Maslany is incredible in the role. I think she's great, she's charismatic, and I had a lot of fun with her. I think there's a lot of interesting ideas in here. I also will say the last two episodes were absolutely brilliant. I had fun with the hell out of those, specifically the Daredevil episode. That is, like, definitively such a great episode, and I love seeing Charlie Cox back in here. I think both of them have great banter and chemistry, but here's my issue with this show. One, sometimes the jokes don't land, and that's fine. That's how most comedies could be. Two, it didn't really fulfill me as a character. Like, to watch Jennifer Walters, I just wasn't really fulfilled to her as a character, and I really wanted to be. And again, maybe I'm in the minority on that for certain places, but I wanted a little bit more from this character. Three, they marketed the show as a court proceeding sitcom. We barely got any court proceedings, and to be honest, the best episode with Jen Walters is the one with Daredevil because of both of them. And I think that's something that they should have either touched on more or really much touched into more of the fourth wall breaking, because when you get to the finale, the fourth wall breaking was excellent, and it was really only sporadically put throughout the entire series. There's just a lot about this show that they got right, and a lot of ideas that are like, this is a good idea, executed in an incredibly disappointing way. And while this show works definitely better just watching it as a binge watch, it sadly still does not hit the mark for me. Which brings me down to my number 16, which is Falcon and Winter Soldier. The thematics, the themes, the messaging, all of that incredibly put into here. And I think Anthony Mackie turns in a wonderful performance. Sebastian Stan is great. Wyatt Russell is incredible as a U.S. agent. I think he is absolutely one of the big standouts of this entire series. And really much every little piece of this show works. But sadly, for a 6-episode show, this feels like it should have been just a 2.5-hour movie. There's a lot of filler in here. There's a lot of, like, things in here that when I'm watching it, I'm like, if you would have tightened this up to 2.5 hours, this would have been, like, an incredible movie for a Marvel phase. And I think that's where the big issues stem from for Falcon and the Winter Soldier. It's the only show that I haven't rewatched. I just don't care to. Now, my number 15 is Marvel Studios' What If. Now, this is only ranking Season 1. So Season 2, which is supposedly coming out next year, could even be better and pull What If in my overall ranking. You're just looking at Season 1. It's a pretty damn good first season. I like the animation. There's some very creative and unique ideas in here, and again, fun concepts to play around with, because that's the best part about What If. But there's also some that are very, you know, not as crazy as they could have gone, or just in general not as unique. And that's kind of where this show kind of hits its stride. Sometimes it's really working, but then sometimes you get an episode where you're like, this is not, I'm not about this. Like, they could have made this better. Like, the whole Party Thor episode, I thought was awful. And that's just certain things that I would have liked different creative ideas in there, but I digress. What If's a cool idea. I'm hoping Season 2 can elevate it more. And now my number 14 is Hawkeye. Now, I was in love with Hawkeye. I was in love with Hawkeye for the first 4 episodes. But then once we got to episode 4, I'm like, we got 2 more episodes, and it feels like there's still so much to do. And yeah, that's exactly what it was. They had Yelena, they had Echo, they still had the villain to introduce, which ended up being Kingpin. They had more of just deals with Kate Bishop's mother, and all of these things, while leading into a finale that is heavily messy, and still fun, but heavily messy, introducing Kingpin to us, which was so great to see again. I walked out of this series going, liking it, but not loving it. That's one of my biggest criticisms for this show, is that really much it's, again, held down because of only 6 episodes. This needed to be more. But by any means, Haley Steinfeld's incredible as Kate Bishop, and Jeremy Renner turns in probably one of his best performances of all of the Marvel movies that he's ever been in. Now, my number 13 is Miss Marvel. Now, I was quite surprised with this one. I'm not a big fan of her from the comics. I think she really works better as a side character in a lot of the Avengers issues that I've read. But looking at Miss Marvel in here, first off, Amon's performance as this character, wonderful, delightful, a great introduction to her. I'm totally sucked in. I loved her, and I also loved her family. I loved her friends, and all the dynamic of family and friendship in this show is really important. Now, while is this the show that's altering and life-changing to the Marvel Universe? No. But it's a great, small, coming-of-age story about one young girl who ends up getting superpowers, and she just happens to be the biggest Marvel fan in the entire world. For me, there's just something special about that every time I go back and rewatch some of these episodes, I just get a big smile on my face. And while I do think, again, same issues I had with Hawkeye are the same issues with Miss Marvel, this show is not held back as much by it for some reason in my mind. But still, I digress. I really like this show. My number 12 is going to be where we're getting to a controversial pick, and that is Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Now, this was my most excited of this entire phase. I was so freaking stoked. I could not wait to see what Doctor Strange is going to provide to us, and after walking out of the movie, I felt very disappointed in the movie. Now, I have gone back and rewatched it about 2 more times after my initial viewing this year. Second time I watched it, I was like, my feelings are pretty definitive on this. I enjoyed it a little bit more, but my feelings are very definitive on my thoughts for this. And then the third time I watched it, I was like, alright, I get it. It's a fun Marvel movie, but I still don't love this film. And I understand a lot of people do, because let me just say, Sam Raimi turns in some of the best directing in the entire MCU. I love that he went out and made a total Sam Raimi movie in the MCU with Doctor Strange. I love what they did with Elizabeth Olsen's Scarlet Witch. I think it's one of the creepiest and scariest performances in the Marvel Universe, but I also love that this technically is a horror movie. I love when she kills off the entire Illuminati. I love the usage of them a little bit more on rewatches, and I love Benedict Cumberbatch as Doctor Strange. My biggest issue with this is that I wanted a lot more emotional arc to Doctor Strange, and I felt that this movie provided none of that. They do it in a very one-note manner that we have seen countless times already in the MCU, and I will go back to say, this film needed 15 to 20 more minutes. I don't care if the film slowed down just for a second, or maybe had some weird pacing issues in the middle, as long as I'm getting character development. That is a major thing in here, and this movie runs at such a brisk pace. Makes it a very fun and entertaining film, but for me, when there's a part, and this is going to be spoilers if you haven't seen the show or the movie yet, when Doctor Strange and Rachel McAdams' nurse gets sucked into that one world and they're looking for a different Strange, I wanted a little bit more from that. It seems like they could have had a great discussion there about certain ideologies, and they don't lean into that. It's very one note, and it was very disappointing to say the least on that whole perplexing nature, as well as the ending for this movie. I like the cliffhanger they ended on, but then they just go back to it and show like something else. It just, again, everything felt rushed. Felt like the Marvel machine really working this movie at times. I enjoyed it. I expected a lot more from this. I expected this to be like top 5 MCU films. So maybe that's what you feel, but not for me. Now, my number 11 is the Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special, which as a holiday special, this is as perfect as it can get. Would I have liked this to be longer? Absolutely. Would I have liked all the Guardians to really much be partaking in this and getting a little bit more to do? Absolutely. But hands down, watching this holiday special, it felt like your favorite sitcom gets its Christmas episode of the season, and this is exactly what it is. This holiday special does quite a few things for me. One, it partakes and gives us a very big nuance to Mantis, a character that I've really not too much cared about, but I think Palm's performance is incredible in this. I now love Mantis. If I were to rank the Guardians of the Galaxy, she would not be in last place anymore. She would actually be pretty high up. I loved her in this. Dave Bautista's Drax. I would like Drax the Destroyer to come back, but Drax the comedian is absolutely hilarious. Certain things in here just make me laugh my ass off. Use Kevin Bacon in here was great. I love all the heartfelt stuff in here. And again, when you look at a Christmas special, you look at a special Christmas type thing that you have a tradition on, this is one of those things that's going to add to that, and I had a blast with it. I really much could not stop smiling while watching this series, And again, it just gets me really prepared for what could possibly be the end for a lot of these characters in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. So shout out to James Gunn on that. Now, my number 10 is Black Widow. I know a lot of people hate this movie, and now I will say, if it wasn't for the third act of this film, which I still enjoy, but it very much just goes back to the same Marvel shit that we've seen before, I think this would be a top 5 Phase 4. Like, hands down, I love this movie. I think this movie opens up in a very drastically different tonal way, and they continue with that tone throughout it all. Now, while this movie did definitely come late, when you go back to rewatch the MCU, it provides a lot of context. I love the introduction to Yelena. I love Red Guardian so much. I love Melina, his wife, well, fake wife, and I love the family interaction in this movie. I think the action's film stylistically great. It really much brings back that Winter Soldier flavor. This movie is really much just held back for me, personally, by the last third act. I think some of the CGI is terrible. I think a lot of the elements in there just feel, again, rushed and feel like a typical Marvel movie, and I hated that. I wish it was a little bit more grounded in that back half, but still, I thoroughly enjoyed Black Widow. I really, really like this, and I think it is a near-perfect prequel for this character. Now, my number 9 is Eternals. This movie is the most overhated film in this entire franchise, and for no fucking reason. I love this movie, and I love Chloe Zhao's directing. Is it perfect? No. Is it a little bit messy? Yes. Do I think this probably would have worked better as a show? Absolutely. Do I think all the Eternals get all the nuances that they should have? No, because there's like 12 characters, so maybe they should have shortened it a bit. But for some reason, I fell in love with almost all of them. Even though I did want a little bit more from all of them, I enjoyed this movie. I love what Chloe Zhao did. I love, first off, the cinematography of this movie. I love the action set pieces in here, and the themes and messages that they talk about these characters that are pretty much gods, and what they were sent to Earth to do. All these things that you start to discover throughout this movie really add a lot of nuance to the entire world of the MCU, and I cannot wait to see where this all ties in later down the road. But what I'm more excited to see is how they intertwine these characters with our other Marvel characters that we've ever seen. I love Makari. I think Lauren Riddle did such an amazing job in this role, and the way that they use her speed in here to show it is some of the best in all of the Marvel movies, as well as Icarus, a very surprising character, Druig, Athena, Gilgamesh, Cersei, Sprite, Ajax, Kingo, Phastos. I think I've said everyone. I love them all, and I can't get enough of them, and I want to explore more of them. And while I definitely, again, think some of these characters could have been written a little bit better or given a little bit more screen time, I really dug the action. And honestly, the weakest part of the Eternals is everything with the Deviants. I don't think the Deviants needed to be in there. I actually wish that one of the other Eternals were kind of in control of them. That kind of led into that more. I think that would have made this a little bit better, because in the end of the day, it gets a little bit messy towards some of the certain things that they're trying to establish with that. But I love the Eternals for what it is, and I can't wait to see what they do next with these characters. Now, my number 8 is WandaVision. This is a almost perfect show held back by a weak finale. Has the same issue that Black Widow goes into. It just happens to go into the typical Marvel flair in the finale. And I feel like this is a show that needed one more episode to really lead into that epicness that they wanted to. It feels like it's very jarring and fast-paced, and we got to end the episode, and I hate that, because I think WandaVision 1 through episode 8 is the best, like some of the best stuff that we've ever seen in Marvel. First off, great performances from Elizabeth Olsen, Paul Bettany. I love the kids in here. I love Agatha. I'm not too excited for her show, but again, prove me wrong on that. But all leading around in here, WandaVision just delighted me. I love the uniqueness of this entire series, and I love how well done it was. I love the exploration of grief and love, and I think this show has a lot more to say than most Marvel stuff, so that's why WandaVision is still pretty high up on my list. Now, my number 7 is Thor: Love and Thunder. Again, if you're talking about overhated stuff, this is another one of those. I do not understand, just as the same way of how people go, I don't understand, Zach, how you like this movie but do not love Thor Ragnarok. I don't understand, if you love Thor Ragnarok, how the hell you do not love this movie, because this is a better version of Thor Ragnarok for what Taika Waititi was supposed to be doing. I'm a major fan of Taika Waititi. There's no doubt about that. But Thor Ragnarok was a disappointment for me. Every single time it came about to trying to do an emotional avenue, there was a joke or something of that nature, a gag. And it, while funny, it always took away from the experience. Thor: Love and Thunder for me, while the screaming goats can be annoying, every single time there is an emotional point in here, they do not just cut to a joke. Two scenes in this that I'm really much talking about. The Mighty Foster, Jane Foster, Thor, talking with Thor, and really much admitting about the cancer stuff. That was a very important scene needed that elevated a little bit more towards the end when she's dying and Gore's dying and he wishes for his daughter to come back and all sorts of things like that. That was emotional too, with no jokes, and they lead into this. I love the ending. It's a little bit wacky with some of the kids, but just in general, Thor Love and Thunder and the actual meaning of Love and Thunder freaking stroked me. Freaking striked me in a very unique way, and I love what Taika Waititi was trying to do with this. Again, some of the humor is incredibly in here, and it does not hit all the time. I smirked and I laughed at times, but maybe Thor Ragnarok's funnier, but for me, this is a more deeply emotional movie that introduces a little bit more to the entire world. And honestly, when it comes down to issues, like after like 5 rewatches of this movie, the one thing I would change is I just wish Gore got to butcher more gods. That's flat out it. I feel like honestly, behind the scenes, that was more of a budget constraint than anything else. Before we get to my top 6, guys, make sure again to hit the like and subscribe button. If you enjoy talking movies and TV over here, I still have quite a few rankings coming up. We're going to be ranking all of the Marvel phases. We're going to be talking about the best 2022 comic book properties, as well as the worst, and tons of other movies and TV reviews coming up soon. So thank you so much again for tuning in. Leave your thoughts down below, and let's get back to this video. At my number 6 is Shang-Chi. I love Shang-Chi so much. This is one of the biggest surprises. Simu Liu is one of the best new introductions to a character inside the MCU, and I think when we look at Phase 4 is really much a great introduction for so many new characters, and Shang-Chi being one of those in particular. I could not get enough of the martial arts style in here, but at the heart of it is a father and son story, and a story that touches on grief and what grief can kind of lead you down and what kind of path that can lead you down, which all leads into Tony Leung's amazing performance. Destin Creighton, one of the best things of him as a director is that no matter what movie he makes, he always can empower and put such a powerful performance on the back end for it all. And I really do think that Shang-Chi is one of the most incredible films that we've gotten in the MCU yet, and hands down one of the best. This is the one film that continues to be elevated with each and every rewatch, and I can't wait to rewatch this one again. And now at my number 5, it is Loki. Man, I was not excited for this whatsoever. I thought this was gonna be crap. Why are we bringing Loki back? He just had that emotional conclusion and he's coming back all over again. Jesus Christ, it was great though. The introduction of the TVA was great. I love the introduction of Kang in here. I think it was such a brilliant choice to do that. Sylvie's a great new character. I love Mobius. I can't wait to see what season 2 is going to have in store. I hope season 2 still adds into a lot of the multiverse aspects and really much the themes that Loki was touching on, while also deeply rooted with an emotional avenue. Because very much as this was about the mystery of who the TVA and everything was, that this is a show that really much is a character study on Sylvie and Loki themselves and diving into those two characters. So I'm very curious to see what they do next with season 2. I hope it's just as great, or if not better, than this first season. Now, my number 4, I know a lot of people did not love this show, but frick I did, and that is Moon Knight. I thought Moon Knight was almost perfect, and I say that as a fan of the comic books. I know this is a completely different interpretation of Moon Knight and Mr. Knight, but I was completely intertwined with it, and a lot of that goes to Oscar Isaac's incredible performance, which I think is one of the best performances in the entire Marvel universe. I had so much fun with Moon Knight, picking and putting together this mystery of what was going on with this character and Khonshu, and seeing the origin of it all. And while it does fall into some of the Marvel isms when it comes down to the TV shows that they've been making, I wish this was just more episodes. This should have been a 9 to 10 episode season. I think it would have been even better. But please, Kevin Feige, where are we seeing Moon Knight next? I need more of him right now. My number 3 is, if you told me this was going to be at my top 3 when it was announced, I would tell you you're absolutely insane, but that is Werewolf by Night. I've watched this thing, honestly, I'm not even going to say how many times because it's pretty embarrassing, but I love this. First off, the introduction to horror into the MCU. I understand we got, Doctor Strange, but this really much is horror and supernatural aspects. Great homage to old classic horror monsters, which makes my heart so happy because that's some of my favorite aspects of anything in the MCU. So diving into there from now, we get 3 new introductions: Man-Thing, the Werewolf, and Elsa Bloodstone, and again, just a lot of great flares. This is such a fun Halloween special that I could not get enough of, and I'm gonna go probably watch it again in a couple more days because I can't get enough of it, and I want more of these characters right now. My number 2 is Black Panther Wakanda Forever. I've seen this movie about 2 times now, and each time I've seen this movie, I like it even more. Putting aside my issues with the movie, I think the movie is too long. That is a big thing to say right there. I also think everything with Everett Ross and Valentina was not needed in here. I think they could have rewritten that to be in a completely different manner. I like Everett Ross. I like what we've seen of Valentina, but again, hurts the pacing because I would have just rather had more of Talokan and, of course, Black Panther. And when it's trying to set up other things in the MCU, I think that's where this film really falters. But looking at it as not just a beautiful tribute to Chadwick Boseman, because that is what it is. This is the biggest thing, and one thing I've mentioned a lot throughout all of these Phase 4s. Phase 4 has really much explored grief, loss, trauma, and Wakanda Forever as being the send-off to Phase 4 kind of leads into all that once again. And I think Ryan Coogler creates, like, this is a movie. This does not feel like a Marvel movie at times. I mean, at times it does, of course, but it's not, it feels like a real movie. When I judge this movie, I feel a little bit different on judging it because of how different it feels. Cinematography, down to the script, the storytelling, the directing. This is when you look at a technical achievement, this is better than the original Black Panther. And while I like the story a little bit more than the original one, it's hard to digress and see everything that they had to do in this one movie, and they made it work. Letiti Wright is absolutely incredible in this. Angela Bassett deserves an Oscar nomination. I wish we got a little bit more of Lupita Nyong'o and Winston Duke. But and of course, Denai Guerrera as Okoye has some of the best moments in this entire movie. But Namor, I loved. This was a great introduction to this villain, and I can't wait to see more of him in the MCU. I love Black Panther Wakanda Forever for what it is. I think it's almost perfect. I think sitting on it more and even just digressing it and bringing it about, this is a movie that is very unique, and I loved it. I'm about to get teary-eyed because of some of the emotional points in that movie, but I love Wakanda Forever. Let's get to my number 1, which, of course, my number 1 is Spider-Man No Way Home. You're seeing me wear it. Honestly, I didn't even wear this on purpose. I'm filming this before I'm about to go to work, and I just wanted to wear this for the day, so it's kind of funny. Spider-Man No Way Home is the kind of celebration of Spider-Man for me, and not just the celebration of Spider-Man, but the Spider-Man that we've ever all gotten in live action. Andrew, Toby, and Tom. But also leading in there, this is a great conclusion to the first Spider-Man trilogy that we got in the MCU, because at the very end of this, you recognize that, oh my god, this is the origin story for this Spider-Man in this universe. It's different. We didn't need an Uncle Ben. We don't need any of that. Aunt May fulfilled all those different avenues. And bringing in different villains from different multiverses actually worked. Lizard, Doc Ock, Sandman, Electro, and of course, Green Goblin. Willem Dafoe absolutely kills it in this movie. I think No Way Home succeeds for me on being an absolute blast to watch, but at the same time, going dark and showing that Tom Holland's character can lose everything. And in the fact, he is the one that has lost everything at the very end of this phase. He is left by himself with no aunt, no family, no friends. Everyone has forgotten about him. And everyone remembers who Spider-Man is, but everyone has forgotten about him. And for me, everything about No Way Home just excels for me. And I will say this. I literally cannot imagine if this movie had come out at any other point in time out of COVID. Like, if this movie was not affected by COVID in any means, I have no idea how much even better this film could have been, or maybe even worse, because sometimes creatives work better under stress and power like that. But this is, again, one of those things where I'm just like, give me more of it now. With all that said, guys, that's my Phase 4 ranking. Thanks so much again for watching this. Make sure to leave your thoughts and comments down below. I can't wait to read your rankings. But, of course, until next time, stay classy.